Hi, welcome to this session on how to play spontaneous worship chords. So, what's wonderful about modern worship chords or songs is that they all follow general chord progressions. Like we're all playing in the major key, for example. So, right, we don't have minor progressions or jazz progressions or changing keys a lot. Everything's pretty relatively simple, in my opinion. And so, you can in a basic major scale, right? We're playing major chords. They're usually in worship songs you have 6 chords at the max that are going to be played, and so you can play around with all the 6 chords, and after a while you start to get used to how all the chords just work together, and how certain chords and certain melodies just flow together, and you start to learn all this. And so what I want to show you is some simple chord progressions I use in sets that are more sets of intimacy or prayer night sets, or sets where I just want to feel the freedom to spontaneously worship the Lord by pulling a chorus from here, pulling a bridge from over there. And it works really well in particularly sets of intimacy or prayer night sets, which we do at the church. And in those prayer night sets, there's times where we're just singing songs of worship to the Lord while people are praying. And so where for our prayer night sets, we don't come with a set agenda. We don't come with like a grid of what songs we're gonna sing. It's just gonna whatever we're feeling at that moment. And for someone who's new to worship and new to guitar or their instrument, if it's piano, um, that can be a very daunting and scary thing, just to say no set, no songs in mind, just going with a heart of worship and expecting spontaneity to happen. I know for a newer instrumentalist or musician who's watching, I know that can be maybe difficult for you to comprehend or get an idea for. What I'm here to do is to help you get to that place where you can play spontaneous worship. And so to begin with, let's look at a song, a very simple song that we're all familiar with. I Can Sing of Your Love Forever. So I'll play it. It goes something like, I could sing of your love forever. 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 So I could sing of your love forever. It goes something like that. I don't know what the official chord sheet says. I have not looked at it in such a long time, but that's kind of how it goes, right? And so if you wanted to put that into a spontaneous session where I had no chord sheet to look like, I'm going to show you some very basic chord patterns that you can use so that you can do a spontaneous worship set. So for example, I'm the chords that I was playing for I Could Sing Your Love Forever were G, C, E minor, C. The second time I played, I believe I did a G, an A minor, and then an E minor and a C. So those are chords you should know by now as you're watching this video. So those are 5 popular chords for worship. So to make this spontaneous, where say I didn't have the song sheet and I don't remember the chord pattern, what I could do is play that C and play a G, but taking off that middle finger so it becomes a G/B, as it's popularly called. And so what you have here is a C, and what is a G without the middle finger on the 6th string, so it's just C, G, B. And so with the C, I just take off that pointer finger, and so I have C played like this, and then I have GB. So these 2 fingers are just going back and forth. And so that's one way to do spontaneous, so it'd be like this. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. And that chorus can become a loop that you can sing for minutes and minutes and so forth. So that is the first spontaneous chord progression I would like you to know. What's great is that chord progression can work for so many songs. It can't work for every song, but it can work for many. And I will show you. Let's add in, for example, Holy Spirit. So let's lead into that. So I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, you are welcomed here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Let's throw in what a beautiful name. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, our King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. So I hope that helps you. If you notice, I'm giving 4 beats per measure or 4 counts, however you want to call it, to each chord. So I was using the same tempo for all these songs, which was something like 2, 3, 4. So every time I only play each chord for 4 beats per measure. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And that was for all the songs. Second chord progression to play spontaneous is to play a C, like how you were doing, and then a D. By now you should probably know how to play C this way. The most basic way to play C, I guess, or not basic, but most popular way. The most basic is that 1 C right there, but the most famous way to play C is like that, especially when you're playing in the key of C. And then there's another way to play the D chord, which is in the same pattern as the C, which is just going 2 frets up. You have a D right there. You can add the pinky right there to have a different tone, but you can do this chord progression. So playing the C and D over and over. And watch, it can work for, or let's see, I haven't tried it. Let's see if it works for all 3 of the same songs, which I believe it will. So, and we can add that pinky right there too, to give it a different tone. So let's try that. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love. Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, you are welcomed here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Glory, God, is what our hearts long for, to be overcome by your. What a beautiful name. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. So it's up to you as the musician to decide which chord progression you want to use. Personally, for the 3 songs that I chose, I like the first progression better. The second progression is definitely permissible, definitely sounds fine. I just preferred that first chord progression where I was playing the G, and, the C, and the G, B. It just sounded better to my ear. And ultimately, like, we're not gonna say, music theory, whether it's if it's, actually, the correct. It's whatever sounds good, and that's ultimately what music theory should all be about. Is hey, let's just figure out what sounds good, and if it makes sense in music theory, great. It's just whatever sounds best to the ear. And so personally, I thought the G, the C, and the B, for those 3 particular songs, sounded a lot better in playing the spontaneous worship style. To show you a couple more progressions, we won't play all the songs for the sake of time, but some other chord progressions that I use a lot will be, I like to play C, C, then G, B, then A minor, and back to the G, B. Again, C, G/B, A minor, 7, and then G/B. Another chord progression that I like would be doing a E minor, D, C. Just doing that over again. E minor, D, C. And lastly, another chord progression I like is C, D, E minor, G/B. And then up the ladder again, C, D, E minor, G/B. And you just start singing songs over those, and it's going to be messy at first because you're just experimenting how choruses and bridges can play over that. And I will say a note on the subject of what to or what portions of songs you should sing when you're doing spontaneous. Most of the time, if you watch spontaneous sets from other churches, other worship musicians, and even myself, if you hear me doing the prayer worship sets or more of these intimate spontaneous sets that are given service, what you will notice is that, for example, myself, I will usually only play chorus and bridges in spontaneous sets. So I will not sing verses in the spontaneous, because verses are, I believe, more complex, and it can get a little messier in terms of meshing all the melodies with some of these spontaneous chord progressions. So I like to stick to only the choruses and bridges of a song and repeat those lines over and over. If you watch my sets or another person's sets, you usually see them just doing repetitions in a spontaneous set, repetitions of choruses and bridges. So that's why, for example, the songs that I chose today were the I Could Sing of Your Love Forever and Holy Spirit and What a Beautiful Name. And I only sang the choruses from each of those because usually it's the choruses and the bridges that you can play over some of these spontaneous chord progressions and not have to worry too much about the messiness that can happen. So I encourage you to try out different choruses and bridges from different songs over those 4 progressions that I showed you. And there's more progressions, but I would say those are my go-to. Anytime I go spontaneous, it's usually one of those. And after a while, you start to figure out what songs go with what the best with your ear, and it becomes a wonderful experience when you can just worship the Lord spontaneously, where you can just worship to the Lord without having to worry about the music or looking at the song sheet, and just giving your song to the Lord. There's nothing like it, and I find it so important, especially for a worship musician in a church, that you would be able to have the freedom of expression in your worship to the Lord. that you would be excellent in that way where you can freely express yourself in worship. And I believe it's so important for any worship musician to come to this level of excellency in spontaneously worshiping the Lord. So that's it today.